My name is Casey McLaughlin, and this speech is space exploration versus ocean exploration. For centuries, even millenniums, man has ventured to explore the sea, learn new things, develop new ideas and equipment, but it seems that more than half a century ago, all that was put onto hold for a venture to get man into space. The race to space, they called it, starting with modules, then rockets, actually testing and launching those rockets. Finally, April 12th of 1961, the first man was put into orbit by the USSR, Yuri Gagarin, on the Vostok spacecraft. 23 days later, the US followed with putting Alan Shepard into orbit on the Liberty 7 spacecraft. Shortly after Shepard's flight, President Kennedy was quoted as to staying committed to putting a man on the moon by the end of the decade. So space exploration began. And aside from a few hiccups, it has gone for over 50 years now, each new mission with more to accomplish than the previous. It started with an orbit, then man on the moon, then an international space station, and if President Obama has his way, by 2025, he will have put a shuttlecraft on an asteroid, actually landing on an asteroid over 5 million miles away. I won't argue that space exploration has taught us an unsurmountable amount about our planet, its atmosphere, our solar system, and then some. What I will argue is at what cost. My three main points in this speech will be: at what cost does this come to the citizens of America or even the world? Money, lives, as well resources is one of my other points. Are we finding resources? Do they really even know what they are looking for? Or do they really possibly just want to look for another form of life, existence of another being? And my third and final point will be space. Is it as easily accessible as we once envisioned? Would the ocean be a better place for these so-called resources that we are searching so hard to find? When our race to space began back in 1958, the budget for the space program was nearly 4% of the total federal budget. Now in 2010, at nearly $20 billion, it represents 0.5% of our federal budget. Although it is 8 times less than it was in 1958, we can now say we have been to space. We have landed on the moon. We have the necessary tools and spacecraft we did not have back then. So why do we need to spend so much of our money to continue this? This leads me to my second point: resources. Somehow, somewhere, it got into some official's head that we may actually find some resources in space. I can remember years ago news updates as the first pictures came through from the Hubble telescope. So then we had to send a rover to examine. We needed to know, is this frozen water? What minerals are on these planets? Is there proof of pre-existing life? What is it out there, and how can we use it? Which brings me to my third and final point. Is space as accessible as we thought? Is the continuing space exploration a waste of money that we could use for a better purpose? Yes. Ocean research and revitalization is a very important part of our lives. If we do not continue to research the ocean, if we do not continue to replenish its resources or make sure that those resources are replenished, the life cycle will die. Our Mother Earth planet is dying. The ocean is a big part of it. The ocean produces over 50% of the oxygen just based on waves, the rolling of the tides. A lot of oxygen is also produced from the algae in the ocean and the plankton. There are many sea forms of life that we haven't even began to discover. It's been said that there are more species living in the ocean that we have yet to discover than there are on land. So why is it we spend so much money on space exploration? Is it because we live the fantasy of another planet, an intergalactic war, trading of universal nations, universal galaxies? Who knows? Yes, there have been many accomplishments in space. There have been many inventions. The water purification system, air filtration systems, the CD, the compact disc, many different things. But ocean exploration has also done a great deal. We have ROVs, remote operation vehicles, high definition television, high density cameras, and the list goes on. Each of these have contributed to technology these days. A lot of people say that we need to continue to be in space because we will no longer be able to occupy the Earth because it is dying. If we spent the money on the ocean research that we spend in space, maybe the Earth wouldn't be dying. Maybe the ocean wouldn't be as it is today, where we take all of our resources and we don't worry about how they're going to be replenished. There are many organizations out there that want to do this but do not have the funds. The federal government has given $18.7 billion to the NASA program just for 2010. There is no federal budget for the ocean exploration program. NOAA, the National Organization for Atmospheric Administration, yes, they do get a percentage of the budget, a very minuscule percentage, but that's also used by NASA for weather patterns, weather guides, to know whether or not they can launch. So who's to say that that's not even funded by NASA? There is no federal budget for the ocean research exploration program. It's all privatized. It's all by coastal state budget. In 2007, Charlie Crist got $8 million, nearly, just for our state alone for ocean research. What happens to the states that don't live in a coastal area, that do not have the ocean in their state, who are not affected by it? Who knows? Maybe if we spend as much money on ocean research as we did in the space exploration program, we wouldn't have to answer these questions.